congratulate you and to commend you for your emphatic victory in the just ended general elections. It is clear from the results that you put in a lot of effort and you've been handsomely rewarded in that regard. I'm sure many Ghanaians are not aware that although we belong to different political persuasions, that we've had very good fraternal relations for many years, based on mutual respect and shared common values, and indeed also our commitment to serve our nation in humility. I am aware that you've already had the opportunity and privilege of occupying the high office of President of our country, and so you are already keenly aware of the demands of this job. However, as a brother, maybe I should use this opportunity to offer a little bit of advice. The Movement for Change and the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, we campaigned on two fundamental themes. One is the establishment of a government of national unity, and the other one is the prosecution of a national development agenda based on the Great Transformational Plan. Now, in respect of the first, Your Excellency, I'm sure you're all aware that our country has been seriously divided for many years because of partisanship. And unfortunately, this is robbing all of us of the benefits of our democratic credentials, which we've nurtured over so many years. And I think this ought to change. Secondly, this whole winner-takes-all syndrome, which has been associated with partisanship, I think is also not helping our country, because we don't have the benefit of harvesting and mobilizing the collective talent of all Ghanaians. And we should not be divided in that regard by our different political ideologies. I think that also needs to change. Thirdly, also, the lack of continuity of government projects, which again is the result of this partisanship, has also cost our nation quite a bit of money. And I think that also has to change. So I would really like, very respectfully, you to consider this whole development paradigm of how you build a government of national unity, which obviously then means that you bring together people from different political persuasions, big and small, people from other stakeholder groupings, because I think they also represent, indeed, in fact, they represent the majority of the people. So they must have a voice also in government. So that's in respect of the first pillar. The second one is the Great Transformational Plan. Your Excellency, I know that during your first term in office, you had to go to the IMF for support. Now, there's a marginal increase or a stability that comes along with being on an IMF program. So ultimately, you find that the numbers will start looking good. It's obvious. That's part of the whole objective of a stabilization program. But then, at the end of the program, unless there's a program of transformation, then you are likely to slide back into instability, which is what takes you to the IMF in the first place. And so, with the Great Transformational Plan, I very respectfully like to recommend a number of priorities for your consideration, which is stabilizing the macroeconomy. I know that because of our manifesto promises, there's a lot of pressure. Everything is important, but I feel that it's the macroeconomy and the economy as a whole that basically must occupy your highest consideration. Along with this, also, I would say a prioritization of the productive sectors of our economy: industry, agriculture, and then tourism. Because that speaks to the next most critical agenda for our nation, which is creating employment, particularly for the youth. Now, beyond this, also, I think, is the issue of corruption, which you've spoken about, and which robs us as a country of so much resources that we can channel into development. The next is constitutional reform. Constitutional reform that would enhance the quality of governance in our country. And I'm sure you're already aware of many of those areas that require reform. And last but not least is the issue of galamsey, which obviously is an existential threat. It's not just a question of those living in galamsey communities. This is something that is going to affect all of us as Ghanaians. So, very respectfully, I think that these two development paradigms, I would recommend that you look at them quite seriously. And within the context of a government of national unity, we are prepared to provide all the support that is required for you to be able to implement both the agenda for transformation and also the government of national unity. Your Excellency, in conclusion, I think the greatest legacy you can leave for our country is to help build a peaceful, united, prosperous country which provides equal opportunity to all Ghanaians, irrespective of their political affiliation, ethnic or religious affiliation. We wish you very well together with your team.
Thank you.
And I think on that regard, I'd like to make a presentation of the great transformational plan to you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome you, and to say how much I appreciate this visit, to physically express what you had already done by phone. We spoke on the phone and you extended your congratulations, but I think this follow-up with members of your team is significant, and we appreciate it very much. Like I said, the easy part is over, which is the campaign and the election. The difficult part now begins, and as our traditionally say, many heads are better than one. And you've properly analyzed the challenge of our democracy, and that is that we cannot harness all the human resource we have to be able to move the country in the direction that we want to go. At any one time, the party that wins and its supporters and functionaries are rowing in one direction, and another part of the country is wishing that that party fails so that they can have the opportunity at the next election to be able to come into government, and to create a situation where all of us, or the majority of us, are rowing in the same direction. Then it means that the canoe in which we are will just continue to be in the same place, or even if it moves forward, it will not move at an optimal speed that guarantees prosperity and dignity for all our people. Since 1992, we have implemented the Fourth Republican democracy under the 1992 Constitution. And I believe that it is based on multi-party democracy. And so the strength and health of political parties is at the core of our democracy. And so one would, even though we're opponents, wish that, the parties that are on the other side of the divide are healthy, and that, they also have their democratic systems working, and that they contribute their quota on whichever side of the divide, government or opposition, they contribute their quota to national development. So we can't be happy with the current situation in the NPP, and I hope that they'll quickly recover from this dramatic loss that they have suffered and then put their act together. We could see it coming, and I've been in politics long enough to realize that there was something wrong in the NPP. I remember clearly, and some people have played it over again, our friend Mustafa Hamid, who was advising me at the time that if you reach a stage where you cannot be advised, then there's something wrong, wallahi. I think that unfortunately he didn't have that same advice for the leadership of his party, because I mean it got to a point where democracy in the NPP really, was not what we've been used to and what we all knew, and so it was obvious that they had become tone deaf in terms of what was happening in the country. I mean, people's complaints and all that, I don't think that it really penetrated, because this was the easiest election to predict. I mean, they should have seen a loss coming. I saw Vice President Bawumia saying that they are disappointed because they had worked hard enough, and so they thought they were going to win. I mean, it was obvious that they were going to lose this election. That meant that they were not in tune with the reality on the ground. We know that there have been some issues that led to your leaving the party, and there have been other things that have occurred over the years. I think that sometimes disruption is a good thing, because then it allows a new beginning. And so I think that all the strands that belong to that tradition, should find a way of putting the pieces together, reconciling, and seeing how the party can be rebuilt so that it continues to be a viable vehicle for sustaining our democracy. I'm happy you've spoken about the issues to do with the challenges of our democracy, and they are all too obvious. You mentioned the winner takes all, and we have a system where certain vulnerable groups are not as well represented in our political system as they should be. And so it's something that we need to look at. Luckily, we have the opportunity to look at the whole 1992 Constitution again. It's been crying for a review, and I remember Professor Mills made quite some movement towards it. I tried to continue, but I hit a stumbling block when somebody took us to court. By the time the issue was resolved, we went into an election year. It was not conducive to continue. So we decided to leave it to the next government. I'm aware that President Akufo-Addo's government had a committee working on something. Chairman Sabusu's committee, there's a report or something. We want to take all this, including the constitutional review report, which was chaired by Professor Fiadio and his team, and then the work of the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee, including the white paper and whatever the Chairman Sabusu committee worked on. We want to see if we can bring all this together, synthesize it, and do a national constitutional review validation conference, and look at how us together, all stakeholders in this country, represented chiefs, professional groups, everybody, and then we look at what is relevant and what we did not even anticipate. At the time we did a constitutional review, we didn't realize that a time will come where there will be an impasse between the Supreme Court and Parliament about vacancy of seats and all that. But these are things that come with practice of the Constitution. And so I believe that if we do this, then it will give us the opportunity to go even beyond and be able to do some amendments to the Constitution that would help take away this winner-takes-all thing. It will bring some more checks and balances into the situation so that the president is not the all-powerful kind of position that makes decisions of life and death, for our people. And that we'll be able to identify other things, including issues like the election of district chief executives, to make them more accountable to the people at the grassroots level. How do we deepen our decentralization and all that? So those would create opportunities for us, and I'm looking anxiously to us being able to do it, and on a bipartisan basis, and as a nation, we're able to do the amendments to our Constitution that will make it a more living document going forward. With regards to the Where did I put it? Who took it? Oh, come on. I gave the thing to me. Why are you coming? With regards to the Great Transformation Plan, I think that it falls almost in line with our reset agenda, because after several years we think that there must be a reset, and that is equal to talking about transforming the way things have been done. Because like you said, we'll go to the program, macroeconomic stability is restored, the CD is fairly stabilized, but that is superficial. At the bottom of it is the transformations that we need to do in order that stability is sustainable. And that is what we've not been able to achieve. The last time I was looking at a map showing the imports that we make into this country. I'm sure it was on social media, everybody saw it. And hundreds of millions of dollars every year just go to create employment for other people in the area of tomatoes, tin tomatoes. I don't know how true it is, but I can't believe that we're eating $1 billion of imported tin tomatoes. It's not possible. We need to interrogate those figures, but whatever it is, I know that a huge amount is going into importation of tomatoes, something that we have a comparative advantage to produce, into rice, into vegetable cooking oil, into many things that, you know, if we put our mind to it, we can produce. And that's why, for me, agriculture and agribusiness, agro-processing is going to be one of the #1 focuses. We pay lip service to giving support to farmers. We bring subsidized fertilizer, half of which gets smuggled to our neighboring countries anyway, and the real farmers who need the fertilizer don't get it. And so how do we use a system that identifies them and makes sure that if government is targeting them with subsidies or with any assistance, it goes to those who are actually the farmers and not to political party apparatchiki. So those are some of the things we need to look at, and that's why we're thinking of farmer service centers that have a catchment area that registers all the farmers, measures their farms, know what they're growing, and at the beginning of every farming season, if government has any support for them, we have mechanization services, tractors, fertilizer, you know, all the agrochemicals that they need, and they just go to their farmer service center. They are registered there. We know their farmers. We know the acreages that they produce, and then they're able to get the support that they need. But over the years, we've left the value chain. Once the farmer produces, he is on his own. I know because I'm a farmer myself. Last year, my soya bean, people just came and told me how much they will buy it for, and it was not worth my while, because then, even though I broke even, you know, it didn't give an incentive for me to be able to continue farming. And so I can imagine that for me, who is probably a medium-sized commercial farmer, one of the small-scale farmers. And so how we tie down the agribusiness and agro-processing end so that we're adding value to the crops that the farmers are producing is something that we need to look at. And that falls in line with industrialization. As you have said, you have been in that ministry before, trade and industry. So you know that we need as much as possible to industrialize, to create opportunities for our young people. Happily, Asia, with the increased prosperity, is becoming a high cost point for production. And so there are a lot of investors who are looking for new places where labor is relatively cheaper and they can make a better profit producing there. And so I've seen a lot of people, investors from Asia, who are looking for places to invest. Unfortunately, because of our economic crisis, and we've lost our prime position in terms of ease of doing business, you can see that a lot of them are choosing Cote d'Ivoire and Benin over us. And so as quickly as possible, we must turn things around and bring Ghana back as the favorite destination for investment. When I was president, for 4 years continuous, we had an average of $3.2 billion investment every year coming into the country. Last year, we barely made $1 billion in foreign direct investment. And you cannot industrialize and turn your economy around with only domestic investment. You need FDI to come in. So how do we open the door so that foreign businesses come in and come and set up in an environment that is predictable? And so these are all things that I think we can we can look at. You talked about corruption, which is one of the major stumbling blocks and hindrances. In the last 8 years, it's actually gone haywire, gone through the roof. There's been no sanctions for people who indulge in corruption. And so it's kind of created a sense of impunity. And as I said the last time, this is our last opportunity to get things right. If we don't get a handle on it, our people are losing faith in our democratic institutions. And so we need to work to restore their faith and let them know that a democratic system is capable of doing the things that will ensure transparency, fairness, and create equal opportunity for all our people. And we're open to working together on all these issues. Unemployment, we know the issue of Galamsey is a hydra-headed problem, and it's been exacerbated by the fact that the non-tax revenue pillars of the economy have somehow declined under the last 8 years. Oil and gas is down by 32%. Cocoa is struggling, and that used to bring in excess of $2 billion every year into the economy. Currently, gold is the only pillar that is holding this country. You can talk about non-traditional exports, remittances, and other things, but these other two pillars are down, and so the amount of foreign exchange that one would have expected to come in is not coming in, and so we have a depreciating currency. And so as quickly as possible, we must transform the cocoa sector so that the farmer is the beneficiary of the production of cocoa, not headquarters spending 3.4 billion cedis. I wonder if they are growing the cocoa in the cocoa board headquarters. That money should be going to the farmers, because if the cocoa tree, the return the farmer gets on his cocoa crop is not worth his while, he won't invest in it. And you, those in the headquarters, are not the ones going to go and grow the crop. And so as quickly as possible, we need to reform that cocoa board. I mean, that huge state, humongous enterprise that is just feeding off the farmers must change. And I know that the World Bank and IMF and co want to work with us to see how we can reform the whole cocoa sector. How about the oil and gas industry? If I have to go around and hug all of them and bring them back and kiss them and tell them come and drill the oil and gas as quickly as possible, I'll do that, because oil is in transition. We know green energies are coming in. If you don't drill your oil and sell it as quickly as possible, you have what they call stranded assets. You have the oil, but nobody needs it. And so there's a time we should be giving them the red carpet to come and invest and pump out all that oil so that we can use it, to transform the lives of our people. And so those are all things that we are happy to work together. Like I said, Galamsey is a hydra-headed problem. We'll do our best to work at it. We're talking to some of the foreign missions where they do small-scale mining. They have the technology for doing it responsibly and sustainably without destroying the environment, and they're willing to share that technology with us. The issue of Galamsey is just a crisis of implementation and regulation. The agencies that have been put to regulate and implement are not able to carry out their duties. And apart from that, the political hierarchy is involved in the illegal small-scale mining, and that's why government does not have the political will to deal with it. And so we hope that we'll create a new environment where we're able to deal with illegal small-scale mining and the destruction of the environment. But like you said, we are open to ideas from everywhere. I've always been a person who believes that all the sense is not in my head, and as much as possible I try to learn from other people, and I know that a lot of thought went into this document. So we'll look at it, we'll borrow from it, we'll steal from it, we'll copy from it. Whatever is positive here, we're going to take and add to the research agenda, and you can be sure that we'll give you credit for whatever we've taken out of it. But I think